Alright, welcome back. So, I just did a video on sort of the negative MRI results that I recently had, and then the discussion came up about surgery, brain surgery, to remove some of the tumor. And so I want to do a short video on my thoughts on that, so you guys know where I'm at. And then also, if you've got other people or people that might be watching it or going through this and they're considering, do we have surgery or not? I figured this would be a good video to maybe go through that. So, try to get the camera up here set up. So, when you have brain tumor, especially glioblastoma, which I have, they always talk about surgery. So I had a surgery in the beginning when they did the biopsy. Certainly that was a surgery. They cut into my brain, the back of the skull, took out a piece to do the biopsy. And often the doctors at that point, while they're in there, will take as much as the tumor as they can. Unfortunately with mine, it was too big and in too bad of a spot, and the healing process takes a while once they cut into your skull, and so you can't really do chemo and radiation when you have that sort of big open wound that needs to heal. And so the doctor was wise at the beginning to say, all right, I'm not going to cut out really anything other than for the biopsy, because they knew I was going to need chemo and radiation, and need that pretty fast. Is a very fast growing cancer, glioblastoma. So they wanted to make sure I was able to get chemo and radiation to stop or at least slow the growth of that. That was important. So they didn't do it then. They reserved the idea of doing it later. So later has come, and part of that later is that the tumor is grown again and was not as responsive as it was before to chemotherapy. And so the doctor wanted to consider surgery, as we got a growing tumor. Although he met with, the oncologist met with the surgeon, and at this point they've decided that it's not really worth it. There's one tumor that's really a problem tumor. It's kind of in between the right and left brain, and so it could, if that grows, it certainly could impact the ability of the brain to communicate. And so that's the one they'd like to take out, but he said he can't take that out. It's in a vital spot, and the risk of permanent damage is too great. So I agree with that. I think that at this point, I don't want to go in for a surgery that they have a lot of doubts about whether I'm going to come out of it okay and be functional. So that's really important for me, to try to remain functional as long as I can. So I think we're going to not do surgery. The other thing that's playing in my mind is that when my dad went through this, he had surgery, and it was they were not gung-ho about it. They said they could do it. It was risky. But, when families going through this, there's a tendency to want to do all you can, right? Especially if it's a loved one going through this. You're like, hey, I don't care what the risk is of surgery. If that tumor's there and it's going to create havoc, let's get it out of there, even though the risk is high. And that was kind of my experience with my family when my dad was going through this. And even though the doctors kind of said, it's not a great idea to do it, we can do it, it's very risky. But again, they were of the mindset that, you got to do it. You got to do anything you can to try to save Dad. Well, I think it was the wrong decision, at that point, because he came out of that surgery paralyzed on one side and never walked again. And his quality of life went way down. So I don't know that that would happen to me, but I don't want to make that rash decision to say, hey, no matter what, we're going to do surgery because we can't let the cancer stay there. We've got some other options. We've got some potential infusion that might work. We got people coming by. Stay here, Daisy. Daisy. Sorry about that. So anyway, the idea of doing surgery is probably not a good option at this point. You know, that the next risky option might be to try this immunotherapy, which I'll talk more about if we get close to that. Right now, based on my history of having a liver transplant and being on immunosuppressants, they don't think that's a great option either, but it may be our better option as we go. I'll keep you posted on that if that becomes a reality. So, benefits and risks of surgery is one of those where you talk it over with your doctors and you try to make an informed decision. Try not to make an emotional decision on that, especially dealing with a loved one, because as you can tell, you know, my quality of life is pretty decent now. I'm sitting outside in the sun here enjoying a cigar with the dogs, and so, you know, it's not a bad life right now. So I don't know that I have to go in and jeopardize that with a surgery, especially when there's not a great prognosis for the results. So anyway, that's what I got on the surgery portion. I'm going to keep you updated, and we'll talk again soon.